Good morning, Connie, and welcome to this conversation. And thank you for agreeing to have this conversation early morning your time. And for the viewers, I'm just going to read your bio first before I start asking the questions which generally people do ask me. So it's the official bio, which I'm just reading from your website. So Connirae Andreas is one of the first NLP trainers, and I will say she's not just a first NLP trainer; she has a co-developer status, and she has contributed a lot in the NLP that we have uh, in this era. She's most well known for her groundbreaking work developing the core transformation process, a method through which our limitations easily become a doorway to a felt experience, many describe as our spiritual core. This inner core offers the deep healing that resolves many of life's problems and challenges. Her work has been published in over 14 plus languages and is taught through a network of trainers around the world. Uh, that's the official bio. Here's the unofficial bio, which is so Connie has been one of my greatest inspiration to come into NLP along with Steve's work. And in principle, I considered Connie and Steve as my early trainers. Not physically, I had access to them, but through the wonderful videos which were created as part of NLP Comprehensive, which was, in my view, one of the very first training schools out of which a lot of graduates have learned NLP. So I consider myself, fortunate to see all of those videos when I couldn't afford attending a course. So on that note, we'll just get started. And the first question is always, you have been in this field for 45 plus years now in NLP. Uh, how did it all start?
How did it all start? Whoa. Do you mean the NLP as a field, or do you mean my work or my connection? What is
Your
your
connection, yes.
yes, my connection. Oh, first I just want to say, Vikram, your introduction has touched me. Thank you for adding that personal statement too. I'm so glad that we could connect in those early years through the videos, if not you coming out here to Colorado. Yes, yes. So thank you for sharing that. So it all started for me and for my husband also. In 1977. Back, it was not quite the beginning, but very close to the beginning of NLP as a field. So we felt very fortunate to be getting involved at such a time. And it was exciting. It was new. Nobody had heard of NLP. I mean, really, nobody. so if I was in graduate school in clinical psychology. If I would say something about it, no one had ever heard. Whereas now NLP, of course, it's known worldwide. But at the time, it was quite exciting for Steve and I. When we learned about it, basically, we just started showing up at every training that was 4 days or long. And NLP was kind of a small club in those days. And it was familiar faces. We would see the same people, we would get to know each other. Very small group of people who were interested at that point. So, and that's one of the things we decided to make it our mission to change, because we saw that it wasn't really getting out very far to people. So Steve and I started projects to create the first more popular books with it, using seminars of Bandler's and Grinder's as the foundation. So that led to Frogs into Princes, to transformation, to using your brain for a change, to reframing. Those books, and they did start to make NLP a little more mainstream. People started to know what it was. Yeah, so I've been rattling on here. What what would you like to hear more about, or ask about, or say?
Well, those are the books, if someone has to learn NLP, and since you mentioned that in the beginning, it was a smart people group, and I'm sure that what went around in creating NLP, especially those first 5, 6 years, uh, led to something, the transformational uh, knowledge which was created, and I see that generation one of NLP is still the classic NLP, which still is the ground work which was done. And special thanks to
Yeah.
you and Steve in terms of, doing that work with Richard and John, and Judy was also part of that, and Frank was also there. So as a legendary core developer of NLP, what enabled you to stay in the field for such a long time?
Whoa, I think originally I stayed there because it was the best thing that I could find, in terms of helping people get results for themselves, get results in life, make personal change, communicate better, all these things we want. It was the best thing that I knew of. I had training in clinical psychology. I was also exploring personal development, things like Gestalt therapy, Virginia to Tears, where, I was exploring all these things too. Carl Rogers, transactional analysis, everything that was out there at the time, I was exploring it. And I felt, and my husband did too, my husband Steve did as well. We felt that this was the hands down, the most powerful kind of approach to change that was available. Because as you know, NLP makes things more precise, more systematic. There's this interest in finding the underlying coding behind what makes change possible, so that we don't spend necessarily hours and years talking about stuff. Um, we can get to the fundamentals and begin the change process more easily. So that kept me going. Then, in recent years, it was different. I don't know if you want to, I mean, starting at, I guess, was 1989 when I first developed Core Transformation. So that's when I started on my own development path that was a little different than classic NLP. Up until that time, my husband and I, we had done a lot of development in submodalities work, in, the grief process, language patterns. I loved language patterns, and I have an audio set on advanced language patterns and conversational change, how to do, that's what we called it back then, how you would just talk to someone and pretty soon you would see the smoke coming out of the ears, and it's like, whoa, it's different now. Okay, so here we are again, and let's just keep on going. Yeah, I just asked you, would you like me to share a little more about the experience with Erickson? Would that be of interest?
Yes, yes, of course, yes.
Um, so it was in 79, the year before Erickson died, the last year of his life. I had the opportunity to visit Milton Erickson again. Steve and I had gone once as a part of these small teaching seminars that Erickson would do for professionals in the field for 1 week at a time. So I went again in 79. And at the time, I was going through a personal crisis, and I guess, I mean, that maybe that's sounding too dramatic, but for me, it felt like kind of a crisis, nothing life phase, an agonizing decision. I was trying to decide if I was going to get married to Steve, who became my husband. We had already been partners in NLP for quite a few years. We'd been together for 5 years or so, but I felt like it was time. Okay, now either we get married and do the family, do the whole thing, or we decide we're going separate ways. And I was just in this, I don't know what to do. I was pulled both ways so strongly. We were both very much in love. We wanted, but there were some challenges where I was thinking that maybe this isn't the right thing for me, and I really didn't know. So I went to Erickson with this background personal life issue. Well, and I asked Erickson on the first day if he would be willing to work with me privately, because I wanted to have him help me with this. So Erickson nods and he goes, yes. And then he smiles, this big smile. And then he just kind of looks away. He doesn't set up a time. He doesn't tell me what to do. And I'm left kind of confused. Like, well, how am I going to get this session? And then we're all ushered into his little room. We all sit there and Erickson starts telling us his stories. He does his thing, but I'm still wondering, well, how am I going to get this personal session? And so there was this little dance going back and forth between the two of us for the whole week, actually, where I would think, maybe he means well, on the first day, he said to everyone, I just got a letter from the board, the licensing board, and they tell me my license to do individual sessions is expired and I can't do it anymore. And then he just kind of laughed like this was really funny. And I was going, whoa, what does that mean? He can't do any sessions? And then I thought maybe he means he'll work with me in this group. He'll use me as a demo person. And I thought, okay, that's a good possibility. And so there was a dance around this one day. I noticed he would usually use the person sitting to his left for a demo person. So the next day I sat there, but 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 he didn't use me as a demo person. And then another day he did use me as a demo person, but nothing happened at all. It was like, whoa, okay. Nothing happened out of that. And then that was the end of that was the second to the last day. And after that, I just kind of gave up. I thought, okay, I'm getting nothing out of this personally. So I may as well get what I can professionally. And I paid extra attention, But then about an hour and a half or so in this session, all of a sudden, this strange this something came over me or washed through me or something. It was as if I became someone I'd never been before. And looking back on it, I think I would describe it perhaps as the true me. We could say that's the true me. At the time, I had no idea what it was, but I just knew there's this feeling of well-being, this feeling of everything's okay. It's going to be okay. It couldn't be otherwise. I'm okay. Everything's okay. It was that kind of feeling in a deep sort of way that's beyond words. It it felt definitely profound. And after that, Erickson looked at me and he goes, and do you still feel a need to see me privately? And I'm going, whoa, I don't, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure if anyway, we continued with a little back and forth where I had these thoughts and it was almost as if he could read my mind. And he would say, uh, the very first thing he said was, and your unconscious mind has just made an important decision. And I thought, whoa, that's really true because I have no idea what I'm going to do, but something feels completely different. And somehow I knew that I would know when the time was right. I would know, and I didn't need to know right then. And then over the next 2 weeks, there was literally this percolating that I could feel viscerally happening inside. And then it became clear what to do. And I knew, so, and I talked to Steve and I said, it became clear that it wasn't just yes and no. It was clear that for our relationship to work, I knew there were 3 things that would need to be in place. So I shared those with Steve and I basically said, I don't know if you're going to want these same 3 things that I want. And I just know that for me, that would be these would be essential for our relationship to really work and for me to say a definite yes. So I wanted him to decide for himself. And if they didn't work for him, then we wouldn't work, and I felt this kind of not graspiness like in my past when I would make if I would have made a decision like that beforehand, I would have felt a graspiness like, okay, I'm saying this, but I really want him to say yes, you know. And this time I just said this and I felt really clean inside myself. Like I didn't need him to do anything. I didn't want him to do anything different than what he would want to do. I wanted it to be his choice, freely given, either way. So it was a remarkable thing. And in this time after seeing Erickson, I felt this, it was as if all my worries, all my anxieties just melted away. They weren't there. And we could say different neurotic tendencies or whatever. It just wasn't there. And but then the only problem was that I thought, well, this is my new reality now. This is how life is going to be. But after a few months, that started falling apart and unraveling, and I was back to my old way, where I did have little anxieties, little worries, and so on. And I noticed that the reason I'm going into this is because this experience with Erickson ended up changing the course of my life. Because maybe it's similar to what some people experience when they do psychedelic mushrooms or something. I don't know. I don't know. But somehow it seemed a little different but definitely it was profound for me. And I liked that it happened without any need to use drugs or anything like that. And yet it fell apart. So after this, what changed was I now knew something was possible. I now knew what was possible. I had no idea it was possible to feel that good or
Mm.
that much well-being. I had no idea. But now I knew, and I was intent on finding the way back. And when things fell apart, I scheduled another time to see Erickson, but he died before I got there.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
so I couldn't I couldn't use him again as the magic wand that would bring me back. Um, but I think maybe it ended up for the best, because out of that, that's what really propelled me to develop core transformation. And then years later, the wholeness work,
Mm.
because
Okay.
now I really knew there was this deeper level of change that was possible, deeper than what I had been able to get for myself with classical NLP methods. And so yeah, core transformation was the first approach at that. And then that was in 89 when I developed core transformation. And then wholeness work, that started in 2007, so quite a bit later.
Wow. So it took 10 years for the core transformation to develop out of your first experience with Ericsson and then moving into development of that core transformation.
Yes and no. It was the core transformation came kind of quickly when I finally got down to it. I think bef that it over 10 years, I don't know what was all happening. I was doing other things. I was finally, what happened in 1989 was that I made the choice. I thought I really wanted something that worked better. So I decided to do an experiment where I would invite people to work with me, and I would accept only people who they had their life's biggest issue. They'd tried everything else, and nothing worked with their life's biggest issue. So then I would tell them, my promise to them was, okay, all I'm going to promise you is that I won't do anything I know how to do. And you can go home when you have what you want. And then I would kind of laugh and they would be kind of like, oh, okay. So we would work together. The very first person that I did that experiment with the very first person, the core transformation method, it just kind of appeared. And I started the session with so he told me his issue, and I started the session with what we could call language patterns, the conversational change that I mentioned earlier, and that I really liked using, and really listening to the presuppositions of his speech, really. But what very quickly happened was I moved to a deeper level than I had ever gotten with conversational change before. And it was this sequence of questioning came out that now is the core transformation method. So, and it very quickly led to this core, what I later decided to call a core state. And I could recognize when I saw it that this is really powerful. I could recognize when I saw it that this is similar to the state I was in with Erickson. And somehow I instinctively knew what to do with it. So if one just gets to these core states of being, these states of bliss, well-being, and so on, that alone is not enough. It doesn't necessarily change people. And that's why oftentimes people have these powerful experiences, but then they come back to their normal state and it's all the same again. In a way, that's what happened to me. It was all the same again. So I wanted to, I knew I needed a method so that the change would be permanent. It wouldn't be, it would be lasting. It would not be something that could fall away. So in core transform, so I knew immediately what to do. We used a variation on the reversing out on the language pattern that I had actually developed that came out of my experience. It wasn't part of the original sleight of mouth. And that pattern is a part of the core transformation method. And then I thought, okay, it worked this time. Maybe it was a fluke, but let me try running the same, because of my NLP background, of course, my interest was not, was, okay, can I pattern out what I did? And can I try that same pattern with another person? And will it work the same way? So that's what I did the next 12 people and just did the same. I did this with 12 people. And out of 12 people who were working with their life's biggest issue, where they had tried everything they knew, including all the NLP stuff, and nothing had worked. Out of them, let's see if I can remember it right. I think it was from something like 4 that said, this is profound. It changes everything. And then another 5 said, it's subtle but profound, so that's sort of like profound so that took care of 9. And then the remaining 3, we really didn't get anywhere with one session. But I thought that's really darn good results for a single session with things people have worked and worked and worked with and haven't made progress. That's pretty dramatically good results. And then later on, I learned that it's like in NLP, I guess I had been sort of trained to think, oh, one and done. You do something, you do a phobia cure, and it works or it doesn't. And it's not that you need to do it 10 times. If that's the solution, it's going to work right away, is usually the case if you're working with a phobic response, right? So I sort of was expecting that kind of thing with core transformation too. It works or it doesn't. And I started understanding later on that with the challenging, with the people where it didn't work in the first session, I started noticing with my clients, if I would continue working over time, and if I understood how to use it, it would help with those people too. And it would take more time, more persistence, but it did help. And this is including people who tried everything else and nothing worked. So I had people email to me after the book was published in different languages, and I still remember an email I got from someone who was read it in another language and emailed me saying, I was diagnosed as clinically depressed, and I tried everything, nothing worked for me. When I got your core transformation, I stuck with it. I did it like every day for a year, or more, and it has changed my life. I've healed from the depression, and and then someone else similarly said, I think they were self-diagnosed with depression, said they had depressed feelings, and they got the Core Transformation book in English, and this person said, I did it every day for, I think, 2 years. Or 200 times. I start losing track of who said 200 times, who said 2 years, but it was generally quite a while and using it repeatedly over time. But again, this person told me it was my doorway out of what he described as depression. So that was pretty interesting, that we could we had a method perhaps that would work with some persistence with some of the really tough issues, as well as the more garden variety things that we all, you know, We all face the guard, but it's sort of like if it will work with the really difficult ones, then it's going to be likely to work with the simple ones too. And that was the case. Yeah, I could tell you so many stories of the successes with core transformation. Some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are just, yeah. Anyway, what would you like to hear more
So,
about?
thank you for sharing this. I wouldn't say a transition, but what came out of your NLP experience, and then you moved into the application of core transformation and eventually into wholeness. And so, if you have to narrate in one or two sentences, what is core transformation? Who will benefit from that? And wholeness, and what are the benefits of reading the both the books?
Okay, of reading the books. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, core transformation is really for it's very both methods are really kind and really gentle. I want to say that first. Sometimes people feel like they have to push themselves to make change, or it feels a little forced. And with core transformation, it feels so kind, it feels so gentle, it feels so nourishing. So it's for basically anyone who has a feeling, a behavior, or a thought pattern that they want to change. It's really, really good for that. You can also use core transformation with positive experiences to get to something even more profound. But most people, realistically, what brings people to personal growth is usually, I'm struggling with this challenge. I get angry at my employees and I don't want to, or I get overwhelmed and then I can't do my job, or my spouse criticizes me and I feel hurt. Whatever it is. Um, or life happens and I feel stressed. So core transformation is really good with all of that kind of thing. Um, Really, the only thing it doesn't work with is if someone wants a skill. Core transformation does not, somebody says, I want to be a capable pilot, you know, well, core transformation is not going to teach you how to be a capable pilot. You need to go to school to training to get that learning. But core transformation can sort of clear the blocks to learning easily. So we started noticing that people who had done some core transformation, when they went into our practitioner training, our NLP practitioner training, they would learn faster, better. They would have more capability. It sort of cleans the emotional debris, so to speak, and there's more readiness to just function well in life.
Hmm.
So that's more than a sentence, but that's what that's what core transformation is. And then so because it and the reason it can heal at this deeper level is that we start with whatever someone's experience is, a feeling or a thought or a behavior. I bite my nails, or I smoke, or I eat more than I want to, whatever it is, or I feel angry, jealous, sad, hurt, embarrassed, it could be anything. We start with that. We use that as the doorway to this core state within. And then the next phase of the process, it utilizes the core state to heal what needs healing inside, so that we have this well-being moving through life. So that's core transformation. Should I go into now what's wholeness work?
Yes. Well, I've attended core transformation, so I can, talk about the benefit, but it's always useful when you talk about it and
Ah,
people can directly hear.
yes, yes, yes. And if you would like to share anything related, feel it's welcome. You don't have to, of course. Maybe your people have heard you speak about it already, but if you would like to add anything, please do.
Well, it was a very profound experience when I was attending the core transformation, and I remember it was a 3 days full day class, US timing, and I was in India attending it online. So I had to really push myself to, just feel the essence of what was going on during those programs. And I felt that ease and comfort, what you mentioned in terms of the things that I was working and practicing with the coaches and trainers who were available in that program.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Yeah. So is this a good time to say a little, one sentence or one paragraph about what's wholeness work?
Yes, well, I've attended the level one and level two as well
Yes.
with you.
Yes.
That was such a profound experience. Again, this was during the COVID time, and I thought maybe it's time to learn something new, and I'm glad that wholeness came around that time, especially because when you're stuck at home and there is so much of unresourcefulness which was going on as well. So wholeness work sort of, if I just to go back into that memory of mine, it sort of settled that feeling of unresourcefulness, and it just gave me a lot of peace within. So that's what I sensed and felt.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that matches or mirrors my experience with it too in many ways. So wholeness work is a completely different method, but it goes to the same deep level of healing as core transformation, possibly even deeper, is how I think about it. It's both of them approach. When I started doing core transformation, people in seminars would sometimes, and clients, they would say, "Are you aware that this is a spiritual experience?" And and I was thinking, I don't, however you define it is fine with me, whatever. Um, and It took a while before I actually experienced it that way myself. I think I was one of the slow. I always describe myself as my own toughest client, and it took me longer than my clients to experience the profound nature of what was possible. And then with wholeness work, that came after a different, very, very difficult time in my life where I did think I might be dying, actually. And I had the sense that if I was going to stay alive, I really, really, it was a strong feeling. If I'm going to stay alive, I have to do everything different. I have to somehow find something I don't know yet. And even core transformation, I have to let all that go, let go everything I think I know, and be open to something different. So it ended up, looking back on it, we could say that wholeness work started off as modeling some of the essential spiritual teachings about it was about what is awakening, and how awakening produces this shift in consciousness where we have this kind of well-being or peaceful feeling that you were describing. And so but it wasn't a modeling in the way I had done modeling before in NLP, because I think it came from my sense of more desperation. I wasn't trying to figure things out mentally. I was more open for guidance from within, we could say, if that even makes any sense. But I think it did. I was open for what my system was guiding me to, rather than what my mind was mapping out might be possible. It was more opening to a deeper kind of guidance. And that led to what is now the wholeness work. And the wholeness work started as to offer a precise way to do what you could call dissolving the ego. And when you do it with wholeness work, it's a gentle process. It's a kind process. It feels nourishing. It feels relaxing. It feels like it leads to this peaceful feeling very directly, really directly. It can happen. So we can start with stress, anxiety, nervousness, whatever. And very quickly it can open to this place of calm and peace when we use wholeness work. And that's just the first phase, because then I continued to be open to this guidance from within. And what I started looking back on it, I now describe it as I began to map out what we could call the universal structures of the unconscious that keep us from being fully wonderful, fully at peace, fully at ease, fully what we could call our true nature, fully the kind of state that sometimes newborn babies are in. If we look at the newborn babies, we see this kind of, if they're warm fed dry, then we can tend to see this kind of this kind of bliss state in the baby's eyes. You know, people like looking in the eyes of a baby. So this is what we learn how to experience for ourselves. It's more than just to access, it's to experience it in such a way that we experience what we could call our true nature. And so then I discovered, though, that the ego isn't the only structure of the consciousness, that the unconscious, that keeps us from just feeling this openness, this presence, this well-being, this peace. There are other universal structures of the unconscious that keep us restricted, that keep us limited. And so the next, wholeness work is now a series of 4 levels of training. And the first level is, let's see if I can find my book here. Here it is. The first level is all mapped out in this book, the Wholeness Work Essential Guide, level 1. And that guides the reader through how to dissolve the ego. It guides the reader through the next 2 structures, which have to do with, the second structure has to do with perfectionism, shame, judgment. It's the experience of inner authority, but we're doing it in a really experience-oriented way, and it ends up nobody has ever done it like this before, and nobody. If you just think, okay, I'm going to work with inner authority, it's not going to get you there. This is a very specific way to reach deep into the unconscious for the unconscious experience of authority. It's easy when you know how to do it, the series of questions to ask, but I assume it's not necessarily that easy without the question, because nobody's done it before. And getting to that level can make some remarkable shifts inwardly, where people naturally heal their shame at a really deep level. The perfectionism starts to fall away, and feelings of anxiousness fall away. So it's again a nourishing kind of practice that is for anyone who really wants personal growth. And I think that anyone who wants the full deal, to have the most personal growth possible, they're going to want both the core transformation and the wholeness work. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Uh, so you've been in this field for 45 years. So, and you still do a lot of work. What's the motivation to stay so motivated to work after so many years as well?
That's a good question. I'm 70. So, some people retire at this age. My husband continued working until the day he died. And I kind of expect I might do that too. Who knows? We will see. And the reason is because I love the question, Vikram. Yeah, it's because the work feels so satisfying. It is so wonderful to be able to share this with people. So I'm kind of on a mission now, especially with wholeness work, is to uh, get the word out, get the message out, so that anyone who wants to have this kind of experience can have it. Um,
Mm.
and it might be a good time even for me to read you after putting out this book. Um, I've been getting the book really does seem to help people get it in a way that I haven't been able to do prior. Um, and so I've started getting more emails from people telling me, and if I could, I'd like to just read the first part of one of these for you. Is that okay? You okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, here's what this woman says. She says, for years and years, I was searching and praying for a way to change myself so I could lead a life with warmth and love, without fear, terror, and trauma, and to find enlightenment, which I decided to want to find when I was a teenager. The core transformation process and a lot of NLP qualifications were a good start. But only when I found your wholeness process, my life really turned around and got so much better. I can hardly believe it myself. So then she goes out to spell out some of the details of some of the things that have changed. And Yeah. She says, and then at the end, she says, you are the reason I am still on this earth. No, not an exaggeration. That I can lead a happy, more whole life, and that I can imagine a future that is worth living no matter what happens. So and I'm getting more of these kind of emails, for some people, it's not this profound for everybody. And when it is, like this woman, she describes how she started using it as a practice. It wasn't a one and done kind of thing. She started using it as a practice. She even got the online streaming video course to support. And then but she talks about how it's changed her family members, and so on. As a result, she's guided some of them through also. Um, and so this is what gives me the motivation, is that I see it's helpful like this for, I know what I wanted to say. I don't want to leave the impression that it's this kind of, everything's different for every single person. It is not. For some people, they start, read the book, start practicing, or start going to a training, start practicing, and it feels like very subtle. They might be going, is anything changes? Is it not changing? I'm not sure. And so for some people, the beginning can be very slow. And it was for me too. And this is what I'm kind of, in a way, fortunate that it was slow for me, because that means I can relate when it goes, it was slow for me, but I could also sense something's happening that needs to happen. I'm starting to get this really deep level change that I know my being has been yearning for. I'm starting to be able to sleep better. The, feelings of anxiousness are starting to fall away. I when I first taught this, I used this myself with feelings of anxiety, and it made it a whole. So I could just walk in the first day and feel fully at ease and comfortable, and just being about assisting other people, not about managing my own feelings. So this is a long way of telling you what keeps me going doing this. I feel like it has something important to offer people, and and it's satisfying to get the feedback from people. Um, Other people have tried other methods. They're coming from decades of meditation, say, I've been doing meditation, mindfulness for decades, and I've gotten a little changing, but a lot of my emotional stuff hasn't healed. And now I'm trying wholeness work, and this is really making things different. Or I remember another email from someone who came from IFS, Internal Family Systems, several people from that, who said, I got some progress from that, but it was so much work. It was so hard, and it took so long to get a little bit of progress. And now I'm just starting in on the wholeness work, and I just can't believe how quickly the results are happening. So this is what gives me the motivation to see that it's making a difference for people.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for just telling how to stay motivated to have such a long career. One final question. What advice do you have for someone who's just starting their journey in NLP and self-development?
Oh, wow. For someone just starting. Um, Gosh, I don't know. I think my main advice is I bow to the impulse to start the journey, to start discovering for yourself what works, and my main advice is persistence, experiment, try different things, but um, but ha but to also bow to the impulse for this self-development that is what brings you to this kind of path. Um, yeah, I think, in my book, I have a little chapter, a story about it. I think the most important choice someone can make in their life is the choice to begin the journey of self-development or self-transformation. And that journey changes everything. But a little, sometimes it can take a little persistence. Sometimes the flow will be easy and natural. Sometimes staying with it will be important. But I
Thank you
think,
for
I'm gonna add also, my advice would be to go with things that, the things that are going to really produce lasting change are going to be things that feel kind to the system. If it feels like force, it's not as likely to last, and it won't be producing the kind of change that is most valuable.
thank you for sharing this.